Well, Terry, it is a house ahead of its time. The Meyer May home was actually built in 1909. I don't know if you knew that. In Grand Rapids, commissioned by a family who owned a prominent clothing business.
But it's the architect who designed the house that makes it so special. Frank Lloyd Wright is a household name, a man who's designed structures around the world.
And did you know that you can tour that home thanks to a local company and it won't cost you a thing? We recently stopped by for a lesson in history and design. It is a hidden treasure located on Madison Avenue in Grand Rapids. We are here at the Meyer May house, designed by architect Frank Lloyd Wright. And we're talking with Don Decker, a docent here at the Meyer May house. This house has an amazing history. Tell us a little bit about it.
Meyer May was a local clothing merchant. His store was located on the corner of Lyon and Monroe, across from what we think of today as the Amalie Grand Plaza Hotel.
Okay.
In 1908, he commissioned Frank Lloyd Wright, an architect from Chicago, Oak Park specifically, to build a house for himself, his wife, and what they hoped would be children. And in 1908, 1909, the home was designed and completed. The family moved in late 1909. It's a mature example of Wright's prairie style, in which he places a great deal of emphasis on the horizontal. From the outside of the house, you notice that in the extensive overhangs of the roof, the deeply raked mortar on the horizontal. The house arguably has a front side, which is very ornate, but the guest entry is on the back. And as you come up the driveway, you're tucked into a little alcove while you wait for the housekeeper to open the door.
Mm-hmm. Then you enter, and it's pretty much an open floor plan.
Very much, and radically different from the norms of the neighborhood. You come into the welcoming foyer, and you get a glimpse of the dining area, the outside veranda, and this living area.
This is a really, really nice space, and there are a lot of things that make this very special. Can you point some of them out?
Well, certainly light is a very important part of it. There's a tremendous amount of natural light, but there's also a very clever use of artificial light, electric lights, back in 1908. Wright incorporates them in the skylights. He uses the wall sconces to create a geometric shadow on the wall, which replicates the pattern in the carpet or the shapes in the windows that he's also created.
What I find so fascinating, he not only designed this house, but he really designed the furniture, as you mentioned, the lighting too.
Well, he didn't want to just build a home or build a house. He wanted to shape an experience. And so he wanted to create a very warm, very comfortable, very serene environment where the family could relax, where they could read, or where they could host and entertain guests.
A beautiful home. Let's take a look around a little bit further. Well, this is a dining room, but by the looks of the table, you can see it's not your typical dining experience.
Wright wanted to shape a very, very different experience. This was the only room or place in the home that the family ate. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner were all served meals around the table. And to Wright, the most important thing was the food and the conversation. And so he puts a high back on the chair, he puts the light fixtures around the corners of the table, so it almost becomes a room inside a room. Space that's very cozy, very intimate, where you focus on who you're eating with and the food that you're enjoying. And the background is the same, very soft, serene, neutral backdrop that we saw when we were over in the living area. And that's a color palette that permeates the entire home. The intent being to give you a place that you can just come and relax and enjoy an experience.
When this home was built, the family didn't really spend a lot of time in the kitchen.
They didn't spend any time in the kitchen. That was the staff's domain. And if you wanted a snack after school, you asked the housekeeper or the maid, and you'd be given a snack.
Okay, well, to see how they continue to live in the bedrooms, let's head to the second part of the house, the upstairs. All right, and so this was the master bedroom.
The master bedroom, like the other bedrooms on this floor, Wright had a different design challenge. He had to provide privacy, so we had partial height walls on the first floor. Here the walls go all the way to the ceiling, but he didn't want it to be a series of boring boxes. And so he modulates the volume of the space. He pushes up the ceiling using what we call a tray ceiling today. Pushes out the windows to expand the volume of the space. And he does the same thing in other bedrooms, but the corridors that connect them have very low ceilings. So there's this constant change in how the space feels.
Yeah, it feels very comfortable. I gotta ask about the beds. They're just not as big as the beds of today.
Well, Mr. May was 5'4". He didn't need a real big bed, and he wanted twin beds. That was their preference. And so you do see a little smaller bed frame and mattress. And in fact, Mom and Dad got smaller beds than the kids did.
Wow. Well, this has been an amazing experience. This home was actually lovingly restored by a pretty prominent local company.
Steelcase had a connection to Frank Lloyd Wright that went back to the 1930s when they provided the furniture for Johnson's Wax in Racine, Wisconsin. And so when the house became available in 1985, they chose to restore it, bring it back as close as possible to the way the family lived in it back in 1911, 1912, and open it to the public.
And people can tour the home. There is so much to learn about this beautiful home in Grand Rapids that was designed by architect Frank Lloyd Wright. Come out, meet Don and some of the other docents. It's a fantastic time. I really can't stress enough how different this home was when it was built. It's really unique when you see it right now. You know, you have to admit that. But in 1909, it was the talk of the neighborhood. When the structure came up, and you know it's in the Heritage Hill neighborhood, they all have very Victorian houses, a very similar style. And this was completely out of the norm of what everybody had ever seen before. Right. Well, pretty amazing.
You know, and it's interesting because I know you are so stylish and you have such an appreciation for architecture. What was your personal feeling on that when you walked in? Were you blown away?
I was, because he was a man ahead of his time. You know, he really incorporated a lot of things that we see architects and designers doing now. Some things that they probably learned from Wright and some of the styles, but he was doing it ahead of his time. Really, really cool. And the fact that he designed the furniture, it cost about $34,000 to build this house, and I'm pretty sure that was a lot of money back then.
Oh, yeah.
Steelcase actually started the renovation of the home in 1985, and today it's used for a lot of corporate events and tours, too.
All right. And if you're interested, public tours are held 3 days a week on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. And guess what? They're free of charge. Your visit starts with a video of the renovation, and then a docent walks you through the house.
It's located at 450 Madison Avenue, Southeast in Grand Rapids, right here in the Heritage Hill neighborhood. And for those who may have been to our studio before, we're also located in the Heritage Hill neighborhood. Yeah. And this is just actually several blocks from our studio, this home.
You wonder what Frank Lloyd Wright would have done with this place.
I think it'd be very different.
Okay, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Your all-access pass to everything West Michigan.